The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the empty darkness between three star systems. It was bigger than most cities on Earth, with shining metal walls and thousands of windows that looked out into space. Inside its halls, the most important meeting in galaxy history was about to begin. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim walked through the wide corridors of the station. His black diplomatic suit was simple compared to the colorful robes and metal armor worn by the alien delegates around him. At 42 years old, he had gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that missed nothing. He carried a small briefcase containing documents that could change the future of human space colonies. Behind him walked Taemin Park, his bodyguard. Taemin was 31 and looked ordinary next to the huge alien security teams they passed. He wore a dark suit and kept his hands relaxed at his sides. Most aliens barely noticed him, which was exactly what he wanted. His job was to protect the ambassador, and the best protection often came from being underestimated. The main conference hall was enormous. A great round table sat in the center, surrounded by chairs made for different alien body types. Some were tall and thin for the bird-like Thalic people. Others were low and wide for the heavy Gorvak warriors. The human chairs looked small and simple between them. 12 different alien species had sent representatives to this meeting. They were here to sign the Outer Rim Accords, a treaty that would decide who could mine valuable metals and gases from the frontier worlds. These resources were worth trillions of credits, and some species were ready to go to war over them. The Gorvak delegation entered first. They were 7 feet tall with thick gray skin and muscles like tree trunks. Their leader, General Corvex, wore metal armor covered in battle scars. Behind him marched 6 Gorvak guards, carrying weapons that could blow holes through starship hulls. They believed strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Next came the Thalic Consortium representatives. These aliens looked like large insects with 4 arms and compound eyes. They wore expensive clothes and jewelry to show their wealth. Their leader, Trademaster Vilesh, counted credits on a small computer while he walked. The Thalic cared only about profit and saw every conversation as a business deal. The ancient Voss Empire sent 3 delegates dressed in flowing purple robes. They had pale blue skin and white hair, and they moved with the pride of a species that had ruled star systems when humans were still living in caves. Elder Thanos, their leader, looked at the human section with obvious disgust. The Voss thought humans were too young and primitive to deserve a place at this table. Other species filled the remaining seats. The plant-like Verdani swayed gently as they communicated through chemical sense. The energy beings called Luxans flickered like living lightning inside special containment suits. Each group brought their own guards, translators, and advisors. Ambassador. Kim took his seat and placed his briefcase on the table. Taemin stood behind his chair, hands clasped behind his back. The bodyguard's eyes constantly moved, watching every entrance, every alien guard, every shadow where a threat might hide. His military training had taught him that danger could come from anywhere. The meeting began with formal speeches from each delegation. General Corvex spoke about Gorvak military might and their right to claim resource-rich worlds through conquest. His voice boomed through the hall like thunder, and his guards nodded agreement. Trademaster Vilesh clicked and buzzed in the Thalic language, which the translators turned into words about market efficiency and profit margins. The Thalic wanted to buy and sell mining rights like any other commodity. Elder Thanos spoke in ancient formal language about the Voss Empire's long history and superior wisdom. He made it clear that his people should have the largest share of everything because they were the oldest civilization in the galaxy. When Ambassador Kim's turn came, he spoke simply and clearly. "Earth is new to galactic politics," he said, "but we bring fresh ideas and honest dealing. Human colonies need resources to grow, but we want to earn them through fair trade and cooperation, not war or trickery." Several alien delegates made dismissive sounds. To them, humans were children playing in an adult universe. Earth had only joined galactic civilization 50 years ago, while some of their species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. But Tae-min noticed something the diplomats missed. Not all the aliens looked down on humans. Some watched Ambassador Kim with interest and respect. The Verdani delegates swayed in patterns that their translator said meant approval. A few smaller species seemed hopeful that humans might protect them from the bigger, more aggressive powers. As the speeches continued, Tae-min felt a growing sense of unease. His combat experience in Earth's special forces had given him instincts for danger, and those instincts were screaming warnings now. Something felt wrong about this gathering, though he could not say what. He studied the other bodyguards more carefully. The Gorvak warriors stood like statues, but their eyes were alert. The Thalic guards held energy shields ready to activate at a moment's notice. The Voss protection detail carried ancient ceremonial weapons that were still deadly despite their age. 3 levels below the conference hall, in the maintenance tunnels that ran through Nexus Prime like veins, something moved in the shadows. The figure was careful to avoid the security cameras and motion sensors that protected the main areas of the station. It had been planning this moment for months. Back in the conference hall, the first day of meetings ended with polite but tense discussions about territorial boundaries. Each species wanted the best mining worlds for themselves, and compromise would not be easy. Ambassador Kim suggested forming joint human-alien mining companies that would share profits fairly. Some delegates seemed interested, while others rejected the idea immediately. As the session ended, Tae-min escorted Ambassador Kim back to their quarters. The human section of the station was smaller than the others, with simple rooms and basic furniture. But it was secure, and Tae-min had already checked every corner for listening devices or hidden threats. "How do you think it went today?" Ambassador Kim asked as they reached his room. "The politics are above my pay grade, sir," Tae-min replied. "But I can tell you that not everyone in that room wants these talks to succeed. Some of those species profit from conflict and chaos." The ambassador nodded thoughtfully. "Tomorrow we begin the real negotiations. The resource allocation discussions will show everyone's true intentions." Tae-min stood guard outside the door as Ambassador Kim reviewed his notes for the next day. The bodyguard's unease was growing stronger. Something bad was coming. He could feel it in his bones. He just hoped he would be ready when it arrived. In the depths of the station, the shadow figure continued moving through the dark tunnels, getting closer to its target with each passing hour. 3 levels below the main conference hall, Kyle moved through the dark maintenance tunnels like a ghost. The assassin's reptilian skin could change colors to match the metal walls, making him nearly invisible even to security cameras. His yellow eyes glowed softly in the darkness as he studied the layout of Nexus Prime Station one more time. Kale belonged to a group called the Void Runners, mercenaries who killed for money across the galaxy. He had eliminated targets on 17 different worlds, from corrupt politicians to rival crime bosses. His natural camouflage abilities and cold patience made him perfect for this kind of work. The contract had come through encrypted channels 3 months ago. Someone with very deep pockets wanted the human ambassador dead, and they were willing to pay enough credits to buy a small starship. The employer stayed anonymous, but Kyle did not care about politics. He only cared about completing the job and collecting his fee. The assassin pulled out a small tablet and reviewed the station blueprints one more time. Nexus Prime was like a small city floating in space, with thousands of rooms, corridors, and service tunnels. The main conference hall sat at the center, surrounded by diplomatic quarters, restaurants, shops, and entertainment areas. Security was tight, but Kale had found the perfect spot for his attack. Above the conference hall, hidden ventilation shafts provided access to the entire station's air system. From there, he could see everything while remaining completely hidden. A single plasma shot through the ventilation grating would kill the human ambassador instantly. In the chaos that followed, Kyle would disappear into the maze of maintenance tunnels and escape on a stolen shuttle. But first, he needed to understand the security arrangements better. Each alien species protected their delegates differently, and knowing their methods would help him avoid detection. The Gorvac guards were easy to predict. They used overwhelming force and direct confrontation. Their weapons could destroy walls and their armor could stop most attacks, but they were not subtle. They stood in obvious places and made loud patrols that announced their presence to everyone nearby. The Thelic security teams relied on technology and defensive formations. They carried energy shields and advanced sensors, preferring to create protective barriers around their delegates rather than hunt for threats. Their compound eyes could see in many directions at once, but they focused on immediate dangers rather than distant possibilities. The Voss Empire guards followed ancient traditions that had worked for thousands of years. They carried ceremonial weapons that looked decorative but were actually very deadly. Their formal movements and ritual behaviors made them seem slow, but Kale knew better than to underestimate warriors from such an old civilization. The humans worried him most because he knew the least about them. Earth had only joined the galactic community recently, and information about their military capabilities was limited and often contradictory. Some reports described them as primitive and weak. Others suggested they were surprisingly dangerous despite their technological disadvantages. Ambassador Kim traveled with only one bodyguard, which seemed foolish compared to the large security teams other species brought. But Kale had learned not to judge alien species by his own standards. Perhaps humans had abilities he did not understand. The assassin activated his camouflage and began moving toward the upper levels of the station. His skin shifted to match the gray metal walls perfectly, and his movements became slow and careful to avoid triggering motion sensors. Years of training had taught him to move like liquid shadow through any environment. He passed through several security checkpoints without being detected. The guards were watching for obvious threats like weapons or explosives, not for someone who could become invisible at will. Their scanners looked for metal and energy signatures, but Kale's organic camouflage and bone weapons did not register on their instruments. The ventilation system access was located in a maintenance area 3 levels above the conference hall. Kale studied the area for 20 minutes before moving, noting the positions of security cameras and the timing of guard patrols. When the opportunity came, he slipped through the access hatch like smoke and disappeared into the darkness above. Meanwhile, in the human diplomatic quarters, Taemin conducted his own security review. While other bodyguards focused on protecting their charges in obvious ways, the human took a different approach. He moved quietly through public areas, noting potential threats and escape routes that others might miss. His military training had been different from what most aliens expected. Earth's special forces did not just learn to fight. They learned to think like their enemies, to anticipate attacks from unexpected directions, and to turn any environment into an advantage. Taemin applied these skills to his current job with methodical precision. He walked through the station's shopping areas and restaurants, watching how people moved and where they gathered. He studied the maintenance schedules and learned which staff members had access to restricted areas. He identified 17 different ways someone could get close to Ambassador Kim without going through obvious security checkpoints. Most importantly, Taemin paid attention to his instincts. Something felt wrong about this gathering, though he could not explain why. The feeling had been growing stronger since they arrived, and his combat experience told him to take such warnings seriously. He returned to the human quarters and began implementing additional security measures that confused the alien protection teams. Instead of posting obvious guards or setting up weapons, Taemin made small changes that would make assassination attempts much more difficult. He altered the ambassador's schedule slightly, changed their usual walking routes, and arranged for random room switches that would confuse anyone trying to target them. The other bodyguards watched these preparations with interest. The human methods were subtle and hard to understand, very different from the direct approaches their own species preferred. Some dismissed Taemin as paranoid or inexperienced. Others began to wonder if humans knew something about security that they had missed. As night fell on Nexus Prime, Kale reached his target position in the ventilation system above the conference hall. The space was cramped and uncomfortable, but it gave him a perfect view of the entire room below. Tomorrow, when the treaty signing ceremony began, he would have a clear shot at the human ambassador. The assassin settled in to wait, his reptilian metabolism allowing him to remain motionless for hours without discomfort. His plasma rifle was assembled and ready, its power cell fully charged. Everything was going according to plan. 3 levels below, Taemin made his final security rounds before the important day ahead. His unease had not faded, but he was as prepared as possible. Whatever threat was coming, he would be ready to face it. The ambassador was counting on him, and Taemin had never failed a mission yet. Neither the hunter nor the guardian knew that tomorrow would test them both in ways they could never have imagined. The treaty signing ceremony began exactly at noon, station time. The great conference hall filled with delegates, advisors, and security personnel from 12 different species. Floating cameras captured every moment for broadcast across the galaxy, making this one of the most watched events in galactic history. Ambassador Kim walked to his place at the ceremonial table with steady steps. His dark suit looked simple next to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other delegates, but his calm confidence commanded respect. Behind him, Taemin took his position where he could see the entire hall. The human bodyguard's eyes moved constantly, scanning faces in the crowd, checking doorways and balconies, watching for anything unusual. His hand rested casually near his concealed weapon, a movement so natural that most aliens did not even notice he was armed. High above in the ventilation system, Kyle adjusted his plasma rifle one final time. The assassin had been waiting motionless for 6 hours, his reptilian metabolism allowing him to remain perfectly still. Through the metal grating, he had a clear view of the ceremony below and a perfect shot at the human ambassador. The ceremony followed ancient galactic traditions. Elder Thanos of the Voss Empire spoke first, his voice echoing through the hall as he recited formal words about peace and cooperation. His purple robes flowed as he gestured, and the other delegates listened. With respectful attention, General Korvax of the Gorvax stepped forward next. The massive warrior's armor clanked as he moved, and his deep voice rumbled like distant thunder. He spoke about strength through unity and the honor of keeping agreements. His guards stood at attention, their weapons gleaming under the bright lights. Trademaster Vilesh clicked and buzzed in the Thalic language, his 4 arms moving in complex patterns as he discussed the economic benefits of the treaty. The translators worked quickly to convert his words into languages the other species could understand. Each delegate spoke in turn, adding their voice to the historic agreement. The Verdani swayed gently as they released chemical scents that expressed hope and growth. The Luxans flickered in patterns that meant peace and cooperation in their energy-based language. Finally, Ambassador Kim stood to speak. His voice was steady and clear as he addressed the assembly. This treaty represents more than trade agreements and territorial boundaries, he said. It shows that different species can work together for mutual benefit. Humanity is proud today. Be part of this historic moment. As he finished speaking, the formal signing began. Each delegate would place their seal on the treaty document using their species' traditional methods. The Gorvac used heated metal stamps. The Thalic applied genetic markers. The Voss signed with liquid crystal that glowed with inner light. Kyle raised his rifle and aimed carefully at Ambassador Kim's head. The human was standing perfectly still, making an easy target. The assassin's finger moved to the trigger as he prepared to fire the shot that would destroy the peace process and earn him a fortune in credits. But in that moment, 3 levels below, Taemin felt something change. The air currents in the hall shifted slightly, disturbed by movement high above. It was barely noticeable, but his combat training had taught him to notice everything. His head snapped up toward the ventilation grates. For just an instant, Taemin saw a tiny distortion in the air above the ceremony. Something was there that should not be. Something hidden, but not perfectly invisible. His mind processed the threat. In milliseconds, calculating angles and distances with the speed that had kept him alive through dozens of battles. Kale fired. The plasma bolt streaked down from the ventilation system like a bolt of lightning, aimed directly at Ambassador Kim's head. The shot was perfect, timed for the moment when the human diplomat reached for the ceremonial signing stylus, but Taemin was already moving. The bodyguard threw himself across the space between his position and the ambassador with explosive speed. His body intercepted the plasma bolt just as it would have struck its target. The energy discharge hit him center mass, burning through his suit and into his chest. The impact sent Taemin crashing to the floor as alarms began blaring throughout the station. The assembled delegates erupted in chaos as security teams from every species mobilized at once. Shouts and alien battle cries echoed through the hall as guards rushed to protect their charges. Ambassador Kim dropped to his knees beside his fallen bodyguard. Taemin was badly burned but still conscious, his training keeping him alert despite the massive trauma. Blood soaked through his torn suit, and his breathing was labored. "Sir," Taemin whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "Ventilation. System. Grid reference 7 Alpha 4. He pointed weakly toward the ceiling where Kale had fired from, giving the security teams the exact location they needed. Medical teams rushed into the hall with equipment designed for different alien physiologies. The human body was unfamiliar to most of them, but they worked frantically to stabilize Taemin, while human medical personnel were summoned from Earth diplomatic ships. Above them, Kale cursed in the ancient Voss language as he realized his shot had failed. The human bodyguard had somehow detected him and sacrificed himself to save the target. Now security forces would be converging on his position within minutes. The assassin quickly disassembled his rifle and prepared to flee through the maze of maintenance tunnels. His mission had failed, but he could still escape if he moved quickly enough. The station's security systems were designed to contain normal criminals, not someone with his specialized skills. But as Kyle began his retreat, he did not know that. His opponent had given the hunters exactly what they needed to find him. Taemin's precise coordinates and tactical knowledge were already being used to coordinate the largest manhunt in Nexus Prime's history. The ceremony had been disrupted, but Ambassador Kim was alive. The treaty could still be signed, and the peace process could continue. The assassin's bullet had failed to destroy the hopes of an entire galaxy, stopped by one human's willingness to sacrifice everything for duty and honor. As medical teams worked to save Taemin's life, security forces throughout the station began the hunt for his would-be killer. The real test was just beginning. Nexus Prime Station had never seen anything like the manhunt that began after the assassination attempt. Security teams from 12 different species coordinated their efforts with military precision, turning the massive station into a trap for one reptilian assassin. Kale moved through the maintenance tunnels with desperate speed, his camouflage abilities keeping him hidden from the initial security sweeps. But the coordinates provided by the human bodyguard had given his hunters a perfect starting point, and multiple teams were already converging on his escape routes. In the medical bay, alien doctors worked frantically to understand human biology, well enough to treat Taemin's massive injuries. The plasma bolt should have killed him instantly, but his body armor had absorbed some of the energy, and the angle of impact had deflected the worst of the damage away from vital organs. Dr. Veltar, a Thelic physician with 4 arms and compound eyes, had never operated on a human before. The internal structure is completely different from any species I know, he buzzed to his assistants. The heart is in the wrong place, and I cannot locate the primary breathing organs." Taemin drifted in and out of consciousness as the doctors worked, but even in his weakened state, he continued providing tactical information. "Check service tunnel C7, he whispered to the security coordinator. "Natural escape route toward the docking bays. Post guards at intersection C12. Commander So-Young Lee arrived from the human diplomatic ship within an hour of the attack. At 38, she was Taemin's former unit leader in Earth Special Forces and one of the most experienced human military officers in space. Her arrival changed everything about the hunt. While alien security teams followed standard search protocols, Commander Lee brought a different perspective to the operation. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters on Earth, developing an instinctive understanding of how prey behaves when being chased. She studied the station blueprints with cold, analytical eyes. "Your people are searching like they are hunting a normal criminal," she told General Korvex, the Gorvak security chief. "But this assassin is a predator, not prey. We need to think like we are hunting another hunter." The general's massive gray head tilted in confusion. "What difference does this make? We search every room, every tunnel. Eventually we find him." "Commander," Lee shook her head. "Predators do not hide and wait. They use their environment as a weapon. This assassin will try to turn our search against us, maybe set traps or ambushes. We need to predict his moves, not just react to them." She began identifying the most likely escape routes based on predator psychology rather than standard criminal behavior. Her predictions seemed almost supernatural to the alien security teams, but they were based on millions of years of human evolution as pack hunters. Kyle, meanwhile, discovered that his usually reliable camouflage was becoming less effective. Against the human searchers, they seemed to notice things that other species missed, like disturbed dust patterns or slightly changed air currents. What he did not understand was that humans had developed these skills while hunting dangerous prey on Earth. The first major contact came when Kale tried to access a service elevator near the docking bays. Commander Lee had predicted this exact route and placed a trap there. As the assassin approached the elevator, human security officers were waiting in positions he had not expected. "Contact in Section D7, came the report over the communication system. "Target is armed and extremely dangerous." Kyle's plasma rifle cut through metal walls as he fought his way out of the trap, but the humans had learned from Taemin's experience. They used mirrors to see around corners without exposing themselves and coordinated their movements with tactical precision that impressed even the Gorvak warriors. The running battle moved through 3 levels of the station as Kale abandoned stealth entirely. His reptilian strength and advanced weapons gave him significant advantages, but he was facing opponents who understood warfare in ways that most galactic species did not. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability and innovation. When their standard weapons proved less effective against Kale's armor, they improvised new tactics. When he used his camouflage to disappear, they tracked him by other methods. They turned every encounter into a learning experience that made them more dangerous. "He is moving toward the main power systems," Commander Lee announced after studying the battle reports. "Not trying to escape anymore. He wants to cause maximum damage before going down." This prediction proved accurate when Kyle reached the station's primary energy distribution center. If he could overload the systems, the resulting explosion would kill thousands of people and destroy any chance of completing the peace treaty. But Commander Lee had anticipated this move and positioned her best people there first. Staff Sergeant Jinho Nam and Corporal Minsu Choi were veterans of Earth's colonial wars, experienced in fighting in confined spaces against desperate enemies. The battle in the power center was brief but intense. Kale's natural abilities and military-grade equipment should have given him every advantage, but the humans had something he did not expect: complete willingness to sacrifice themselves to stop him. When Kale cornered Sergeant Nam behind a power conduit, the human did not retreat or surrender. Instead, he charged directly at the assassin with nothing but a combat knife, forcing Kale to choose between killing him and maintaining his position. The distraction allowed Corporal Choi to flank the assassin and disable his primary weapon. Kale fought with the desperation of a cornered animal, but the humans had turned the entire power center into a maze of traps and ambush points. Every time he thought he had found an escape route, another human soldier appeared to block his way. The end came when Commander Lee herself entered the battle. She moved with the same cold precision that had made Tae-min such an effective bodyguard, anticipating Kale's moves and countering them before he could complete them. "Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law," she offered as her team surrounded the wounded assassin. Kale's yellow eyes blazed with hatred, but he was practical enough to recognize defeat. His employers had not paid him enough to die for this mission. He dropped his remaining weapons and allowed the humans to take him into custody. The capture was broadcast throughout the station, showing the galaxy that human military capabilities were far more advanced than anyone had realized. The same species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers had just demonstrated tactical superiority that left even veteran warriors impressed. In the medical bay, Tae-min finally stabilized as human medical personnel arrived to supplement the alien doctor's efforts. His survival, like the successful capture of his would-be killer, became another demonstration of human resilience that forced the galactic community to reconsider everything they thought they knew about Earth's people. The interrogation of Kale would reveal the full scope of the conspiracy to destroy the peace process, but the real revelation was already clear to everyone watching. Humanity had announced itself as a major power through the courage of one bodyguard and the competence of their military forces. The interrogation of Kale took place in Nexus Prime's maximum security detention center, with representatives from multiple species observing the process. The assassin sat in a specially designed chair that neutralized his camouflage abilities, his reptilian features fully visible under the bright lights. Commander Lee led the questioning with clinical precision. She had studied Void Runner psychology and knew exactly how to approach someone like Kale. The other species interrogators had tried threats and intimidation, but humans understood that information was a weapon that could be turned against itself. "You were hired 3 months ago through encrypted channels," Commander Lee stated. It was not a question. Payment was transferred to 7 different accounts across 4 star systems. Your employer went to considerable trouble to remain anonymous. Kale's yellow eyes remained fixed on the table in front of him. He had been trained to resist interrogation, but something about the human's approach unsettled him. She was not trying to break him through pain or fear. Instead, she was simply stating facts as if she already knew everything. The contract specified that Ambassador Kim must die during the treaty signing ceremony, she continued. Maximum chaos, maximum political impact. Someone wanted the peace process to fail completely, not just be delayed. The alien observers watched with growing fascination as Commander Lee laid out the details of the assassination plot without Kale saying a single word. Human intelligence-gathering methods were apparently far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. 3 organizations benefit from continued conflict in the Outer Rim territories, Commander Lee said, walking slowly around the detention chair. The hegemony war suppliers profit from selling weapons to all sides. The Nexus trade. Syndicate controls the shipping routes that become valuable during wartime. And the Shadow Court of the Voss Empire gains political power when other species are weakened by fighting. Elder Thanos, who had been observing silently, stepped forward with obvious anger. You dare accuse the Voss Empire of sponsoring terrorism? Commander. Lee turned to face him with calm eyes. I am not accusing anyone yet. I am simply identifying the organizations with motive, means, and opportunity. The investigation will determine which one hired our friend here. She returned her attention to Kale, who was beginning to show signs of nervousness. Of course, we already know some interesting details about the payment trail. Human intelligence services are quite good at following money, even when it is hidden, behind multiple shell companies and false identities. This was a bluff, but Kyle did not know that. Earth's intelligence capabilities were still largely unknown to the galactic community, which allowed Commander Lee to appear more knowledgeable than she actually was. The payment came from an account controlled by syndicate shipping interests. She continued, watching Kale's reaction carefully. Specifically from companies that profit when the standard trade routes become too dangerous for normal commercial traffic. Kale's eyes flickered toward Trade Master Vilesh, who was observing from the corner of the room. It was a tiny movement, barely noticeable, but Commander Lee caught it immediately. "Interesting," she said softly. So it was not political after all. This was about money. The interrogation continued for 3 hours, with Commander Lee systematically extracting information through psychological pressure rather than physical force. By the end, she had identified the entire network of contacts that had arranged the assassination attempt. The Nexus Trade Syndicate had indeed sponsored the attack, hoping to prevent the peace treaty from establishing new shipping regulations. That would hurt their profits. They had used intermediaries and shell companies to hide their involvement, but human financial investigators were already unraveling the complex web of transactions. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Tai Min was recovering, faster than the alien doctors had thought possible. Human healing abilities were apparently another surprise that the galactic community had not expected. "His cellular regeneration rate is remarkable," Dr. Veltar buzzed to his colleagues. "The damaged tissue is repairing itself at 3 times the normal rate for most species, and his immune system is fighting off infection more effectively than our best medical treatments." Taemin was conscious and alert, though still weak from his injuries. When Ambassador Kim visited him, the bodyguard insisted on receiving briefings about the investigation and security arrangements for completing the treaty negotiations. "Sir, you need to focus on the political situation," Taemin said from his hospital bed. "The assassination attempt has changed everything. Some species will see it as proof that humans are weak targets. Others will respect our response to the crisis." Ambassador Kim nodded thoughtfully. "Commander Lee's investigation has impressed everyone. Even the Voss are admitting that human methods are effective. That is exactly what we need," Taemin replied. "Respect through competence, not fear through strength. Show them that humans are valuable allies, not just another species, competing for resources." The revelation of the Syndicate's involvement had indeed changed the political landscape. Species that had been suspicious of human motives now saw them as victims of the same criminal organizations that threatened galactic stability. The assassination attempt had backfired completely. Elder Thanos himself visited the human delegation to offer formal apologies for his earlier dismissive attitude. "Your people have shown honor and capability that demands respect," he said to Ambassador Kim. "The Voss Empire would be pleased to discuss closer cooperation with Earth." General Korvax was even more direct in his praise. "Your bodyguard fought like a true warrior," he told the ambassador, "and your soldiers hunt like apex predators. The Gorvak hegemony recognizes strength wherever we find it." Trade Master Vilesh, whose own organization had been cleared of involvement in the plot, saw new business opportunities. "Human security services are clearly superior to current galactic standards," he clicked. "The Thalic Consortium would like to hire your people to protect our trade routes." But perhaps the most significant change was in how the smaller species viewed humanity. The Verdani, the Luxans, and others had been intimidated by the larger, more aggressive powers. Now they saw humans as potential protectors who could help them stand up to bullies and criminals. As the investigation concluded and preparations began for completing the treaty signing, it became clear that the assassination attempt had transformed the entire diplomatic situation. Humanity had entered these negotiations hoping to prove they belonged at the table. They were now being courted as natural leaders in galactic affairs. The failed attack had demonstrated 3 crucial things about humans: their individual courage, their military competence, and their dedication to justice over profit. These qualities were exactly what the galaxy needed in an era of increasing criminal activity and political instability. Ambassador Kim reviewed his notes for the final treaty negotiations, knowing that the terms would be far more favorable to humanity than anyone had originally expected. The price of respect had been paid in Tai Min's blood, but the investment was already showing remarkable returns. The age of human influence in galactic politics was about to begin, built on the foundation of one bodyguard sacrifice and one military unit's professional excellence. 2 weeks after the assassination attempt, the Outer Rim Accords were finally signed in a ceremony that carried far more significance than anyone had originally planned. The great conference hall of Nexus Prime was packed with delegates, observers, and media representatives from across the galaxy, all watching as history was made. Ambassador Kim walked to his place at the ceremonial table with steady confidence. The plasma burns on his bodyguard had healed enough for Tai Min to return to duty, though he still moved carefully and wore lighter armor that accommodated his recovering injuries. The sight of the human bodyguard back at his post sent a powerful message about human resilience. The ceremony began with formal acknowledgments of the previous 2 weeks' events. Elder Thanos of the Voss Empire spoke first, his ancient voice carrying new respect as he addressed the human delegation. The attempt to destroy these negotiations through violence has failed, he declared. We have learned that true strength comes not from weapons or threats, but from the courage to protect others and the wisdom to seek justice. The human delegation has demonstrated both qualities in measures that command our deepest respect. General Korvex of the Gorvak stepped forward next, his massive frame somehow less intimidating than before. The Gorvak hegemony has always honored warriors who fight with honor. The human bodyguard showed courage that would make any Gorvak proud. His people have earned their place among the strong. Trademaster Vilesh clicked approval in the Thalic language. The investigation led by human security forces has revealed criminal networks that were stealing from all of us. Their methods are more effective than anything we have seen before. The Thalic Consortium proposes formal security partnerships with Earth. When Ambassador Kim's turn came to speak, his words carried weight that would have been impossible just 3 weeks earlier. Humanity came to these negotiations as the newest member of the galactic community, he said. We leave as partners and allies, committed to building a future where cooperation replaces conflict and justice replaces greed. The treaty terms reflected this new reality. Earth's colonies received more favorable resource allocations than originally proposed. Human security firms gained exclusive contracts to protect major trade routes. Most importantly, the Terran Federation was formally recognized as a major galactic power with interests and responsibilities spanning multiple star systems. But the real changes went deeper than treaty language. The assassination attempt had revealed something unique about human nature that resonated throughout the galactic community. Other species fought for territory, profit, or ancient grudges. Humans fought for principles and for each other. Tai Min stood behind Ambassador Kim as the signing proceeded, his eyes still moving constantly to watch for threats. The medical teams had marveled at his recovery speed, and his return to duty had impressed even the most skeptical alien observers. Here was proof that humans did not just talk about dedication and duty, they lived it. The Verdani delegates released chemical scents that expressed joy and gratitude. The plant-like beings had been frequent victims of piracy and extortion, but now they had human protection services that actually cared about their safety rather than just collecting fees. The Luxons flickered in patterns that meant hope and renewal. As energy beings, they were often misunderstood by physical species, but human diplomats had made genuine efforts to communicate with them as equals. Even the smaller delegations from remote systems found themselves with better representation. Humanity had become their advocates, ensuring that the treaty protected weaker species from exploitation by stronger ones. As the ceremony concluded, requests for human involvement poured in from across the galaxy. The Spiral Arm Mining Collective wanted human security advisors. The Frontier Worlds Alliance asked for human diplomatic mediation. 3 different species requested human military training for their defense forces. Commander Lee, who had been promoted to Director of Galactic Security Operations, found herself managing a department that grew from 6 people to 60 almost, overnight. Earth's military academies began receiving applications from alien students for the first time in human history. "We are going to need more ships, more personnel, and a lot more training facilities," she told Ambassador Kim during their final meeting on Nexus Prime. "Every species in the galaxy wants to hire humans for something." The ambassador smiled as he looked out at the stars through the station's massive windows. 3 weeks ago, we were hoping to get fair treatment in one trade agreement. Now we are being asked to help maintain peace across half the galaxy. Are you worried that we are taking on too much responsibility too fast? Commander Lee asked. Ambassador Kim shook his head. I am worried that we might not be taking on enough. The galaxy has been waiting for someone to stand up for justice and cooperation instead of just grabbing power and resources. That assassination attempt showed everyone what humans are willing to do for our principles. In the medical bay, Tae-min completed his final checkups before returning to Earth. The alien doctors who had saved his life presented him with a unique honor, a medical achievement award recognizing his contribution to interspecies medical knowledge. His case had taught them crucial information about human physiology that would help them treat other humans in the future. Dr. Veltar clicked farewell in the Thelic language as Tae-min prepared to leave. Your species continues to surprise us, the 4-armed physician said. We thought we understood biological limits, but humans seem to exceed them through pure determination. The final ceremony aboard the human diplomatic ship was small but significant. Ambassador Kim presented Tae-min with Earth's highest civilian honor for his actions during the assassination attempt, but more importantly, he offered him a new position as Director of Personal Protection Services for the expanding Human Diplomatic Corps. The galaxy has learned that humans are worth protecting, Ambassador Kim said. Now we need to teach them that we are also very good at protecting others. Tae-min accepted the promotion with quiet pride. His sacrifice had not just saved one life or one treaty. It had opened the door for humanity to become what the galaxy desperately needed. Honest brokers who cared more about justice than profit, protectors who fought for principles rather than territory. As their ships prepared to depart Nexus Prime, the human delegation could look back on the most successful diplomatic mission in Earth's short galactic history. They had arrived hoping to prove they belonged. They were leaving as acknowledged leaders of a new era in galactic cooperation. The assassination attempt that was meant to destroy the peace process had instead become the foundation for humanity's rise to galactic prominence. One Bodyguard's willingness to sacrifice everything for duty and honor had shown the galaxy what humans truly were. A species that could be trusted with power because they understood that real strength came from protecting others. The age of human leadership in galactic affairs had begun, and the stars themselves seemed brighter with the promise of what was to come.